The film reels hummed like distant thunder in the editing room, as if the ghosts of forgotten centuries were gathering just behind the glass. On the screen, a slow pan swept across a field of winter-killed grass, Valley Forge, desolate, unyielding. Then came the voice. Steady, worn like an old map folded too many times. We won't work on a more important film. Ken Burns said it quietly, almost to himself, but everyone in the room heard it, and somehow everyone understood. For this was not the Chapter 1, The Room Where the Past Still Breathes. The door to the editing suite clicked shut behind Ken Burns as he walked inside carrying a thick binder of annotated transcripts. On every wall, large photographs were pinned. A young black drummer boy standing beside a white regiment. A fragment of a letter from Abigail Adams. A map of the Iroquois homelands before the Revolution fractured them forever. The staff sat quietly. It wasn't a tense silence, but a reverent one, like sitting in a church after the last hymn. Ken moved slowly, his fingers brushing across the photos as he passed. Look at them. They're all waiting. The documentary had consumed nearly 7 years of work. Chapter 2, A War That Was Never Only a War. A narrator's voice echoed through the room as the editors played back a segment. The American Revolution was not one war. It was 1,000 wars, personal, political, spiritual, and often within the walls of a single home. The screen shifted to a New England farmhouse, a reenactment, a father and son arguing across a table lit by candlelight, the father loyal to the crown, the son taken in by the thunder of rebellion. "Where do you stand when the world splits in two?" the narrator asked. Ken stood behind the editors, arms crossed. This is what people forget. It was a civil war. Chapter 3, The Children of Two Empires. The documentary widened its lens to the indigenous nations. A map unfurled across the screen, forests, rivers, and council grounds stretching from the Mohawk Valley to the edges of the Great Lakes. The narrator's voice softened. For Native nations, the revolution was not a fight for freedom. It was a fight for survival. Ken had insisted from the beginning, the story must include them not as footnotes, but as equal participants with their own motives, strategies, alliances, and devastations. "We cannot understand America without them," he often said. Chapter 4, The Enslaved, Liberty's Dark Mirror. If there was any part of the documentary that kept Ken awake at night, it was this one. A dramatization opened with the silhouette of an enslaved man staring through the bars of a barn window as the sounds of a patriot rally drifted across the fields. A historian's voice cut in. The revolution was a promise of liberty built on a foundation of bondage. The contradiction was not avoided. It was not softened. It was confronted head-on. Enslaved men joined the British in hopes of freedom. Others escaped to Chapter 5, The Women Who Carried the Nation. The documentary shifted to a portrait of Abigail Adams, her letters flowing across the screen like the chords of a piano. "Remember the ladies," her words insisted. But the film went far beyond the famous wife of a famous man. It showed women running farms and workshops while husbands went to war, women serving as spies, couriers, and smuggler queens of coastal towns, women organizing supply chains that fed entire
Chapter 6, A General Made of Flesh, Not Marble. The documentary did not present George Washington as a statue come to life, but as a man, contradictory, brilliant, terrified, triumphant, infuriatingly human. A reenactment showed him pacing his headquarters at Cambridge, rereading a letter from Congress demanding victory without providing shoes, gunpowder, or enough soldiers. Next came the disastrous New York campaign, Washington's greatest series of failures. A historian spoke, his tone almost tender. What made Washington indispensable was not perfection. It was Chapter 7, The World Beyond the Battlefield. Diplomats in Paris, bankers in Amsterdam, merchants in the Caribbean, spies in London taverns. The documentary devoted entire sequences to the global nature of the war. This wasn't just 13 colonies rebelling. It was a seismic shift that pulled the world into its orbit. France sent money long before it sent ships. Spain acted quietly but decisively. Chapter 8. When victory felt like defeat. The surrender at Yorktown was not filmed as a triumphant finale. Instead, it was filmed as a quiet, haunting moment. British soldiers marched out with precision, laying down arms with a dignity that the Americans recognized in themselves. Washington watched in silence, refusing to take personal credit. The narrator said, "Yorktown ended the fighting, but it did not resolve the country."